The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Like Fantasy. Sign up with my code SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to 1K. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football in the NFL with Rhythm. Get a 70 for child today by going to sportsgames.com, RETHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It's currently Friday night, roughly 9:40 p.m. Eastern Time on November 11th. And also, Scott Reichel once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the group stage matches here for Tuesday and Wednesday. Going to preview all four of those matches while giving out some lock and dog picks at the end of the show. Spoiler, though, we are missing a couple lines for the actual Wednesday matches, so apologies. We'll do the best we can, but we don't exactly have everything to cover for those. We'll do the best, once again, that we have available. Either way, though, before we get into the actual preview of the matches and the recap of the matches for Sunday and Monday, do want to quickly recap how we did in the lock and dog picks. Overall, great episode. Can't complain. Ended up sweeping. I feel like we had a pretty good read on both the matches we ended up choosing, and it was really never in doubt. For the actual lock, a Dim and Hour team total under 8.5, a minus 115 on, I believe that was on DraftKings. Really never in doubt, as Dim and Hour got a break up early, actually, in the first set. Then got broken back immediately, and Sinner broke him again, and then at that point, it was a rout. So Sinner killed him as he ended up winning the match, only giving up 7 games. Nothing Dim and Hour could do about it. Dim and Hour just doesn't have the firepower to match Sinner, and with the court speed definitely benefiting Sinner in general, he was able to just push Dim and Hour around the court. Sinner looked great in his first match back after the illness that caused him to withdraw from the event in Paris. But the point is, you saw Sinner look great, like we thought he would, and Dim and Hour ended up falling short of the team total. For Dog, though, had a nice winner there with Zverev to win straight sets against Rublev at even money, as that was never in doubt. Zverev did win 6-4, 6-4. Rublev wasn't terrible, but Zverev's been in great form. He won Paris with a bunch of matches there in straight sets going in his favor. I thought he looked sharp here, and he did, as he ended up winning in pretty convincing fashion, 6-4, 6-4. So once again, nice start to the event, sweeping. Hopefully he'll sweep again here in the matches for Tuesday and Wednesday, but do want to actually remind you once again, first of all, before we get into a deeper preview of those two matches, do want to remind everyone that you can also show support for the show by subscribing on YouTube, and remind you can also show support by leaving a rating and a review. So if you're listening to the podcast, either through video format, on a live stream on YouTube, on Twitter with the simulcast, or even YouTube videos afterwards, or you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple, audio only, you can still show support, so please leave a rating and a review on Spotify, or please like and subscribe on YouTube to help show support for the channel. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality, all affordable, so different colors as well, different options, all cheap. Recommend getting yourself something from the merch store, not just for this show, but for the other shows with the network. And a reminder, once again, no matter if it's this show or the other shows with the network, you can also show support by going to Spotify, leaving a 5-star rating and a review. All you can help prevent corporate gambling from taking over. So diving back into the actual matches that we saw over the last couple days, starting off with the Sunday matches. So for these, you had Fritz beating Medvedev, which I thought was actually a pretty decent possibility, and then you had Sinner beating Dim and Hour. So Medvedev ended up losing, and then he had a breakdown, because he ended up having pretty much a temper tantrum on court where he started throwing his racket around, and he seemed really, really, I'd say, distressed. And then in the post-match press conference, basically said, "I don't want to be here." That was basically how he, I would say, described his, I'd say, stay right now in Turin. He kind of just came out and said, "Listen, I hate the actual tennis balls that we're using, and now I really just don't want to be here." That's kind of what he ended up articulating. I'm trying to quickly pull up the exact quote, but that's kind of the gist of what he said. So point is, Medvedev wasn't exactly, let's just say, handling it too well. He flipped his racket backwards at some point. It was kind of just a mess. And considering the fact that it's the final event, it was the, let's just say, I mean, anytime you get the top 8 together, it's supposed to be the best, not just players, but ambassadors, I guess, of the sport. And then the first match, you have Medvedev making a joke of the situation. I feel like didn't exactly handle the overall environment too well. But Medvedev seems to be extremely checked out mentally, and he kind of just got his ass kicked by Fritz. We thought Fritz, once again, could win the quarter at 6-1. Thought the price was insane. The Medvedev was about half that, and we were going to fade Medvedev, and it worked out. So nice win there for Fritz. For the other match, though, once again, Sinner looks pretty comfortable. Was not great early, as he had not played for a couple weeks, so rust was a factor early on. And then after that, he dominated, as Sinner was able to just overpower Dim and Hour in a lot of the rallies, while also limiting the unforced errors. But you saw Sinner face one break point in the entire match, and it was actually to start the match in general, as Sinner ended up getting broken in his second service game of the entire match. But that, once again, only break point of the entire match. So Sinner was dialed in after that, and then you saw him just really kind of pressure Dim and Hour serve constantly throughout the match, en route to a 6-3, 6-4 win. So, nice win for Sinner. Nice team total under there for de Minaur. Nothing too shocking. Moving on to the matches there on Monday. So, for these, you had one serious shocker. I'll save that to the end. But you had Zverev who beat Rublev in straight sets, which was pretty, I'd say, expected. Now, 6-4, 6-4, I feel like was a pretty realistic outcome because Rublev still has firepower. The courts still play fast here. Thought that he would end up struggling. And the truth is, both guys did serve very well in this match. Now, Zverev served incredibly well. Zverev won 80% of the first serve points and 80% of the second serve points. Rublev did win 76% of the first serve points, but only 53% of the second serve points. But Zverev never faced a break point, and Rublev only faced 2, and he failed to defend either break point. So the point is Zverev made the most of his opportunities as he went 2 for 2 on break point chances, but not many actual chances to be had for both guys combined. So both guys did serve well, but Zverev made the most of his opportunities. Rublev really never threatened a Zverev service game, and that resulted in a nice, easy win there for Zverev. Now, for the other match, this wasn't the shocker. You had a straight set win, which was expected, by the wrong guy. You had Alcaraz against Ruud, and Alcaraz got destroyed. They saw Ruud win 6-1, 7-5. Then quotes came out after the actual match that Ruud knew that Alcaraz was sick. Apparently, Alcaraz was dealing with something. Don't know if it was a cold or if it was something more serious. Point is, though, Alcaraz was definitely not 100%, and you saw him struggling physically over the course of the match. Now, at first, you might think, all right, well, a star player's losing. Maybe that's just an excuse he has in his back pocket. Apparently not. Apparently before the match actually took place, of course, they were in Turin for a couple days, doing some media stuff, etc. Ruud said in the post-match press conference that he knew that Alcaraz was sick, and it wasn't really anything he could do about it, but he was going to go out there and win, and he could tell that Alcaraz was not 100%. So it wasn't something that was made up at the last minute. Alcaraz was clearly, I'd say, unwell, and that was something that Ruud knew. Nothing Ruud could do about it. You show up, you try to win. I'm not going to get mad at Ruud for once again taking advantage of a weaker opponent in terms of health. But the point is Alcaraz was not fully healthy, and that was addressed afterwards by Ruud. So it wasn't made up, but Alcaraz, you have to wonder if he's going to have much left in the tank here for the second match, or if he's in danger of being eliminated. Because if he ends up losing the match in the next couple days, he'll be 0-2 in the group stage. So that would definitely put him in a serious code red situation where you might end up losing in the group stage. Just keep that in mind. Kind of a must-win match for both guys here, with Rublev and with Alcaraz playing against each other in the next day or two. You have to wonder who's going to come through. If Alcaraz is healthy, then of course you like his chances. If not, then anything could happen. In theory, if he doesn't get healthy, he could drop out, and Dimitrov could fill in as the alternate. So we'll see what happens, but that was the main shocker of the day, which was Alcaraz losing in pretty convincing fashion. At least the first set was at 6-1. Second set was 7-5, but Ruud got the job done, who'd been in really bad form lately, but a very nice win for him. I believe he was around plus 900. So the fact that Alcaraz was sick at about a minus 1,500 price tells you nobody knew that Alcaraz was dealing with anything involving a certain sickness, but he was, and that resulted in a pretty shocking upset there for the first couple days of the event. Nothing else, though, that was too shocking. Besides that, the favorites did win in half the matches. You saw Fritz beat Medvedev, which I did like in general, and I did think that, once again, Alcaraz was going to win, but I did not pick Alcaraz to win the event. I'm not shocked that with the speed of the overall courts, Alcaraz was kind of, I'd say, I don't want to say bullied by Ruud, because once again, illness was a factor, but Alcaraz really not been great on the faster courts so far this season. We saw him lose in Shanghai to Makic, for example. He tends to play better on the slower surfaces, from what I've noticed, and the fact that he won Indian Wells back-to-back times, and Indian Wells one of the slower hardcourt events of the entire calendar year, tells you that Alcaraz does prefer a slower hardcourt setting, and this is definitely not that. But either way, point is, I see a comment, by the way, from Wipeout saying he can't believe that he ended up winning the under on 19.5 games in that Alcaraz match. Kind of the same thing as the Dzanchult match in the U.S. Open, where people were betting the under 3.5 sets in parlays, you're the under in games in parlays, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, your favorite, the massive favorite, got destroyed. So you won anyway, but Alcaraz ended up losing comfortably. So it's kind of the same thing that we saw against Dzanchult in the U.S. Open. But either way, Alcaraz is now up against it, and we'll see if he can win out to actually make it out of the group stage. But either way, point is that's going to wrap it up for the actual breakdown of the matches here for Sunday and Monday. Now it's time to get into the matches for Tuesday and Wednesday. But for that, though, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you but on Fantasy because they have a lot of great items on their. Sorry, I'm actually by Underdog Fantasy. Sorry, just wanted to make sure I didn't skip a read there. Underdog Fantasy has a lot of great items on their pick menu. They have the NFL, they have college football, they have college basketball, MMA, NASCAR, NBA, tennis, and more. Boostober's upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boosts and much more. For the upcoming entry, a reminder, you can use specials and boost on unreflexed entries. I know I gave out Flacco higher after interception in that game on Sunday, and I think he threw a pick on the first possession of the entire game. For the actual, I'd say, upcoming matchups, what do I want to go with here? I might look ahead to NFL Sunday coming up over the next week. So it might not be officially posted yet, but I'll go with another interception play for this one. For the interception play, I thought about Darnold actually because he threw a bunch of them in that game against Jacksonville. But I think I'm going to go, you know what, we'll go back to because they had a bye last week. Give me Jameis Winston. Give me Jameis Winston, higher half a pick. We saw him have a great game against the Ravens. Then he had a bunch of picks against the Chargers. I think the Saints with a new coach can actually use some of that energy to actually show up defensively. We saw them look pretty good against Atlanta. Give me Jameis Winston, higher half a pick there as the play for the underdog entry. Reminder, though, when you do sign up for a new account, claim a special pick and first-time deposit offer up to 1K using promo code SGPN on Fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Just finished going through the recap of the Sunday and Monday matches. Now it's time for the actual preview of the Tuesday and Wednesday matches. Starting off with the Tuesday card. So this card's going to be, once again, featuring two matches. You have Medvedev against de Minaur, and you have Sinner against Fritz. First match taking place at around 8 a.m., and then Sinner Fritz around 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So for the actual breakdown, for the actual favorite, you have Medvedev minus 120. You have de Minaur around even money. For the spread, you have -1 for Medvedev, +1 for de Minaur. Over-under is around 23. For the actual set spread, you have de Minaur to win. A set is around -260. Medvedev in straight sets is +200. You have de Minaur to win in straight sets at +240. The over 2.5 sets is around +120. The under 2.5 sets is around -140. Now, the head-to-head's kind of interesting because Medvedev's been better in the head-to-head, but recently not so much. In fact, it's 6-3 in favor of Medvedev, but de Minaur's actually won a decent amount of matches recently, as he has won 3 of the last 5 meetings. So you have seen a bit of a shift there in the head-to-head, I'd say, nature between the two of them. And we're looking at the matchup so far this year. Face-off in the French Open. De Minaur did win in 4. Saw them face-off in Beijing. That was last year. Medvedev did win 7-6, 6-3. US Open, Medvedev did win in 4. Toronto, though, you saw de Minaur win 7-6, 7-5. And he also won in Paris in 2022. So de Minaur, if you're doing the math, has won 3 of the last 5 head-to-head meetings. And he also has won, quietly, a pretty decent amount of matches on hard court, as he has won 2 of the last 4, which is really not that bad if you're actually comparing the, I'd say, once again, history of the two of them. The fact is, Medvedev has been viewed as one of the better hardcourt players on tour for a while, and he kind of owned de Minaur for the beginning part of their careers. But you are looking at a spot where I think de Minaur can really do some damage here, and you're looking at a guy who I think can really, really be susceptible to getting, I'd say, blown out, is actually Medvedev, because Medvedev mentally appears to not really be interested in playing here in Turin. And the fact is, after his first day, showing up for the event, he ends up going into the press conference basically saying, I don't want to be here. That's not a good look, and I think de Minaur can once again show some pride. We know he's come back from injury recently. I'm not going to roast him too hard for getting killed by Sinner. A lot of guys got killed by Sinner here. I wanted Sinner to win the event without dropping a set. I felt that good about Sinner dominating his quarter. But the point is, I do think that de Minaur showed some signs during the course of that match where he can be a threat at times, at least based on his consistency, and he was able to break Sinner one time. Medvedev, though, was not able to break for a single time, got broken twice, played a really bad match, and he really complains about the tennis balls a lot. It's not I'd say, a singular complaint, because he's made issues about the tennis ball for months, if not years. And it seems like he really just wants the season to end already. So the sooner you can end it, I think he might be, in the back of his mind, willing to punt a match or two. Maybe not officially, but if he falls behind, I don't see much resolve. I think he might roll over, and de Minaur can get the job done here. But de Minaur beat him in the one meeting this season. Yes, it was on clay, but he has won 2 of the last 4 hardcore meetings. So I think that de Minaur can give Medvedev problems. I'll actually go with him as a dog here. Medvedev might be an auto fade for me, because if you have that big of an outburst and then you top it all off with basically no apology, with you just saying, I don't want to be here, this sucks, the tennis ball's terrible, I want to go home, I'm not going to suddenly back you at a -120 price. I think de Minaur can show up for some overall pressure moments from Medvedev, and I'm wondering if he's going to respond well or not. I'm skeptical. So I'll go with Dimonauer to get the job done in this one. The over or the under is pretty tricky because Medvedev, once again, can roll over if he falls behind early. So maybe if you want to go for like Dimonauer straight sets at plus 240, I don't hate that. I think the price is actually pretty good. But I think Medvedev, once again, with the lack of overall, I'd say, passion to be here, I think is going to come back to bite him. I think he might be a potential 3-and-done here, losing all 3 matches and then moving on to actually just go home for the offseason. So I'll go with Dimonauer, get the job done in that one. Moving on to the other one, you have a massive favorite. You have Sinner, who's about minus 700 against Fritz, who's around plus 520. For the actual game spread, you have minus 4 for Sinner. You have plus 4 for Fritz. For the actual over-under, you have around 21.5 games or 22.5. Juice, though, towards the under at 22.5, minus 145. For the set spread, you have Sinner and straight sets at minus 200. You have Fritz to win a set at around plus 160. Besides that, you have the team total for Sinner at 13 and the team total for Fritz at 9. So we saw Fritz look good in his first match against Medvedev, winning in straight sets. As for Sinner, he looked great against Dimonauer. No shock there. Now, we saw them face off in the U.S. Open final, of course, this year, and Sinner did win in straight sets. He won the first set 6-3, second set 6-4, and then the third set he did win 7-5. Should have probably dropped the set, though, as Fritz did go up a break in that set and then choked it. But the point is, they have faced off 3 times. Sinner is currently 2-1. First 2 times were in Indian Wells, which is basically in Fritz's backyard. And then they faced off this year, and Sinner did win comfortably. So for this one, I think I'm going to go with Sinner, but the question is how, because he's that big of a favorite. I think Sinner might win the event, not dropping a set, especially if Alcaraz does lose in the group stage. Definitely helps out my, I'd say, bolder call in the last episode. But for this matchup, I think Fritz is going to look fine at times with the serve. The issue is I really just think Sinner is eventually going to take over, and I don't think Fritz is going to break him. So I think that Sinner is going to be able to look pretty dialed in with the serve, with the forehand, and just the overall consistency on the wings. And Fritz has been a lot better in that area. It's why I made a U.S. Open final. But I think we'd all agree when it comes to rallying, Sinner is still a class above Fritz. And I think that'll be the issue that Fritz will run into. If Sinner goes wall mode, which is basically his usual form, while also throwing in the firepower attached to it, I don't see many weaknesses for Fritz to exploit. Fritz needs to serve extremely well, win a breaker, and go from there. I'm skeptical. I think Sinner is once again pretty comfortable here in Turin. It's in Italy, so he's got a big crowd support, but he made the final here last year, beat Djokovic here last year. He's a great overall player, best hardcourt player on the planet right now, and you're looking at the fast-paced courts really working to his favor. Now, it's also going to work to Fritz's favor because it's going to help out with the serve. But if Fritz ends up struggling for a service game with his first serve percentage, Sinner should have a pretty decent chance to break. And I don't feel the same way if the roles were flipped and Sinner had the second serve a lot of points in a certain game. So for me, I'm going to go with Sinner to get the job done. Think you might end up getting there maybe with like a 7-6, 6-3 type thing, maybe even just no breaker at all. But it's tough to find value on Fritz for me because I do think that Sinner is that much better than him in general in terms of overall tennis talent. So I'll go with Sinner in this one. For value, I mean, 21.5 games is pretty low, but I understand it. Like, I understand why the price is where it is. I can't lay 5 games here with Sinner, or like 4.5 at plus money. He might get there, but I really don't see much value on this match in general. The one thing I think I am tempted by, though, is the correct score in the first set through 4 games. Now, I know I gave it out through 2 games for the Goff and Zhang final in the WTA Finals, which actually won. But if you actually look at this on DraftKings, they have the exact score 4 games in the first set of that Sinner and Fritz match, and 2-2 is minus 120. That I think is a good price because you're looking at a spot where both guys are good at serving. You're looking at both guys who I think can once again hold relatively easily, especially based on just how effective the first serve percentages can be, because I think that Fritz and Sinner are pretty high on the first serve percentages, and they're also pretty effective when it comes to first serve points won. But 2-2 in the first set with one of the faster paced courts on the entire tour at minus 120, I find very appealing. I think that'll be an interesting option. Give me the Fritz and Sinner first set score through 4 games, 2-2 at minus 120. Think Sinner will break eventually, but in the first 2 return games, asking a bit of a lot. I'll go with that as my play for that one. Moving on, though, to the Wednesday matches. Missing some actual lines for this one. But for the actual money line price, you have Alcaraz as a pretty decent favorite, minus 345. You have Rublev at around 3-1 or plus 275 shopping around. So once again, shop for the best line. For the other one, you have Zverev at minus basically 700. And you have Ruud at around plus 450. So getting into the Alcaraz match first. Tough to bet now. kind of have to wait to see if Alcaraz is healthy or not, because if he's sick again, I can't take him. It's actually a win. And they faced off this year in Madrid, one of the only events Rublev actually showed up for this year, and Rublev beat him in 3 sets. So Rublev's actually 1-0 against Alcaraz this season, but they faced off in this event last year in the ATP Finals, and Alcaraz did win 7-5, 6-2. So Rublev, we know, has been kind of a mess mentally, and we saw him lose in straight sets to Zverev. No shame in that, though. Zverev's off of a Paris Masters win. He's in great form, so it is what it is. But no break points is pretty concerning. Now, for Alcaraz, once again, he was in pretty I'd say average form entering the event. Saw him lose to Sinner in the final in the Saudi Arabia Kings Slam. Then he lost in the second round or second match to Humbert. Then he lost in the first match here to Ruud. So Alcaraz has been kind of overvalued recently, and I do think that he can be on upset alert. Rublev, though, is very difficult to trust on a regular basis, so I have to wait to see how healthy Alcaraz is. If he's still somewhat compromised physically, I'll take Rublev to win a set. I think that's a pretty realistic outcome. You could probably find that at minus 110. But I think you're looking at Alcaraz, who should get the job done. I think he's better than Rublev. We saw them face off last year, and Alcaraz wasn't great in this event last year either, and he was still able to beat Rublev in straight sets. So I think Alcaraz has a great chance to actually win this match, but I have to wait to see the actual injury report to see if Alcaraz is still battling something. If he is, give me Rublev to win a set. If not, I think Alcaraz wins in straight sets. Kind of straightforward. I think Rublev will be a 3-and-done guy to lose in the group stage, probably losing in the next match as well. So keep that in mind. I think Ruud versus Rublev is actually interesting, but the point is I think you're looking at a spot where Rublev could lose out, and it wouldn't shock me if that happened. So either way, though, moving on to the other match, you have Zverev in the matchup against Ruud. Ruud looked good in the first match, but once again, Alcaraz wasn't 100%, so tough to fully invest in Ruud at this point, but still a nice win for a guy that was in really bad form. Did lose in his first match in Metz, but Bonzi won the tournament, so I guess that's excusable. Did lose in the first match in Paris, lost in the first match in Basel. So Ruud was an absolute mess, and then he ended up once again snapping the 4-match losing streak with a win against sick Alcaraz. But for this one, I think he'll not be as lucky. Faced off this year in the French Open, saw Zverev win in 4. Faced off, though, a couple times over the years, and you have seen Zverev usually get the better of it, but it has been somewhat close. So to get into the actual matches here, they faced off 3 times on hard court. Zverev has won 2 of the 3, and Zverev has won both of those meetings in straight sets. So point is, Zverev, when he wins, tends to win comfortably on hard court, and Ruud can make it interesting on clay. So I'm beat Zverev in straight sets in the French Open last year. Then Zverev got revenge winning in 4 in the French Open this year. But on hard court, it does seem like Zverev tends to get the better of it, despite Ruud winning in Miami in 3 sets back in 2022. So for this one, I think I'm going to go with Zverev, but once again, similar issue to the Sinner match. Such a big favorite, where's the actual value? I think it would be on the under for games. Nothing, once again, that substantial, because there really aren't many great prices I like for the match here. So I think I'm going to have to mostly skip it. But I do think Zverev will win in straight sets. I think Ruud will maybe make 1 set competitive. But I think that Zverev, based on how he's serving and how he's returning, is just right now playing at arguably his best level that we've seen him at in his career. So based on that, I think he's in a really good opportunity to maybe win the event entirely. Ruud, good performance. I'm not going to dismiss it. Still a win over Alcaraz, But I do think that Zverev, based on current form, will make his life very difficult. And we saw Zverev look good against him in the French Open this year. I think Zverev just a bad matchup for Ruud on hard courts, especially these that play pretty fast. I'll go with Zverev to win comfortably. Tough to find value, but I'll go with the under in this one. Maybe the team total under 12.5 and just pick Zverev to get the job done there in a relatively convincing fashion. Either way, though, that's going to wrap it up for the actual preview of the Tuesday and Wednesday matches. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But before that, though, I want to remind you once again, they're brought to you by BetUS because they've been around for more than 30 years. And a reminder, you can use a deposit in crypto, get lightning fast payouts. And a reminder, you can also use our link, sportscam.com to BetUS, promo code SGPN, so they know we'll send you BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. A reminder that Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sportsbook platform that will provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive models in seconds. So if you want to try betting models, this is the platform for you. You can bet predictions on money lines, spreads, holes, and props. And a reminder that you could also build your own model, copy one from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build one for you, which definitely helps. And a reminder, you can track props on Rhythm. They have NFL picks, they have college football, they have college basketball, NBA props, etc. All you can think of for the actual platform. A reminder that try it out for free for a week if you are skeptical of the actual platform. Claim it's an free trial today, but go to Sports and Thumbs Rhythm, Sports and Thumbs, RETHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gaming Podcast. Just finished previewing the matches on Tuesday and Wednesday in the ATP Finals. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I am going to go back to the de Minaur and Medvedev match. Going to go with de Minaur do well, but I found a safer approach. I am going to go de Minaur team total over 12 at minus 140. So if de Minaur wins, you automatically push worst case scenario. If he wins with a 7-5 or 7-6 in straight sets, then you win automatically. Point is, though, a couple ways to win here. So de Minaur has won 2 of the last 4 hard court meetings in the head-to-head, so he has been pretty good against Medvedev, and Medvedev has not really been thrilled at the, I'd say, environment here with the balls they're using, and it seems like he's extremely, I'd say, I'll put it this way. He's extremely distressed, and it seems like he kind of wants the season to be over because he hasn't won a title this year. Been a pretty rough go of it for Medvedev recently, but the point is de Minaur has been good recently in the head-to-head, saw him win the French Open, so he's not going to be intimidated by Medvedev, and I do think Medvedev, once again, might potentially punt if he's down early. I think either way, it's a good price. De Minaur can win the match at plus 110. I don't hate it, but Medvedev maybe shows up. So you have to wonder, at least keep the options open. De Minaur can get there if he wins in straight sets with maybe a 7-5 or 7-6 in there. Can get there if he ends up, once again, winning in 3, or if he loses in 3. Medvedev could win in 3 with maybe a competitive set in there, or 7-6 maybe, which de Minaur could win or lose, and you get over there anyway. So a couple ways to win, and if de Minaur wins by any score, you would worst case scenario push. So I like that built-in kind of insurance policy. Give me a de Minaur team total over 12 at minus 140. I'll fade Medvedev, who appears to really not want to be there. So I think that's a pretty good angle to potentially fade a favorite in the matches on Tuesday. For the actual dog, though, tough to find value because there's a lot of massive favorites here. And Alcaraz, I want to see what his health is before I actually place a bet on that match against Rublev. So for my dog, I'm going to go with a 2-pick parlay. I'm going to go with the chalk, but straight sets. I'm going to go Sinner in straight sets, parlay with Zverev in straight sets, and that pays plus 125 on DraftKings. So a couple reasons why. I'm going to go with Sinner to win in straight sets. First reason, he's won 25 of his last 26 matches. He's been rolling. We saw how good he can be on fast-paced courts in Shanghai a couple weeks ago. Now we're seeing it again here in the ATP Finals. We saw him look sharp last year making the final. 25-1 in his last 26. He's an absolute machine on hard court, and I'm going to back him because of it. He also beat Fritz in straight sets in the U.S. Open final, so I think that Fritz will once again struggle to break, and I think that Zverev is going to look equally as sharp as Sinner will in this one. Before Sinner, I just think he's better than Fritz. Simply put, give me Sinner to win this one in straight sets. As for Zverev, I'm picking him to once again dominate in this match. We saw him dominate against Rublev, serve very well, only faced 0 break points, actually, so he served incredibly well, and he has been in great form. We saw him win 4 straight matches in straight sets, including the final 3 in Paris for the title. But the point is, Ruud ended up beating Alcaraz, but Alcaraz was not 100%, but I think that Zverev is right now in peak form. I think he's playing great tennis. He's number 2 in the world for a reason, and I'm going to dare Ruud to actually duplicate that performance that he had against Alcaraz in the first one. Think that it was mostly Alcaraz not being able to actually look, I'd say, consistent or overall up to his usual level based on illness. So I'm going to put a little asterisk by the win that Ruud had against Alcaraz in the Monday matches. Think he'll fall back down to earth here. Give me Zverev to get the job done in straight sets, and I'll parlay those two once again at plus 125. So once again, the picks here for the Tuesday and Wednesday matches here in the final group stage. I'm going to go with the lock being de Minaur team total over 12 at minus 140. For the dog, I am going to go with Sinner in straight sets, parlayed with Zverev in straight sets at plus 125. That's going to wrap it up for the actual matches here for Tuesday and Wednesday. Now it's time to give you all an update for the actual schedule. I think I'm going to keep doing this format, which is staying with the group stage, but going in every, basically 2 days. So I'm going to go with the Thursday and Friday matches next. So keep that in mind. Preview Tuesday and Wednesday in this one. Then we'll be back for Thursday and Friday next one, and then we'll go from there. Till next time, though, find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. I'm on the NBA show, WNBA show, MLB show as well. A reminder, you can also show support for the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, you can also show support by leaving a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.